The harbor woke up slowly each morning, like a sleepy town stretching its arms. The water was calm, moving in soft waves that tapped the wooden docks again and again. Small fishing boats left early, and their engines sounded like low humming in the distance. Seagulls circled above, waiting for scraps. The air smelled of salt, wet wood, and fuel from the boats that came and went all night. Near the largest dock, a long white boat stood out from everything else. It was not like the working boats around it. It was smooth and bright, with clean glass windows, silver rails, and a polished deck that reflected the sunlight. Many people in the town called it the floating palace. The owner of the boat was a woman named Linda. Linda did not live near the harbor. She lived in the richest part of the city, where the streets were wide and the homes had tall gates. She drove luxury cars, wore expensive clothes, and walked like the world belonged to her. She had built her life around winning. If she wanted something, she expected it to happen quickly. If it did not happen, she became angry. Linda loved her boat because it made her look powerful. When she arrived at the harbor, people stared. Some admired her. Some disliked her. But almost everyone feared getting on her bad side. Linda had a sharp voice and a habit of speaking like she was always testing people. That morning, Linda arrived earlier than usual. Her heels clicked on the dock as she walked fast toward her boat. Behind her, 2 assistants carried bags and folders. A security guard followed quietly, watching everyone around. Linda's face looked tense. The reason was simple. Her boat had stopped in the water the night before. It had been embarrassing. Linda had invited a group of important guests for a small evening trip. The boat had left the dock smoothly, lights shining, music playing, and drinks served on silver trays. Linda enjoyed attention, and she loved watching people smile at her expensive lifestyle. She felt like the queen of the ocean. But then the engine gave a strange sound. At first it was small, like a weak cough. Then it became louder. A deep shaking moved through the boat. The music stopped. Glasses clinked. Someone asked if everything was fine. Then the engine stopped completely. The boat drifted slowly, away from the lights of the harbor, floating like a quiet problem that refused to hide. Linda's guests tried to stay calm, but she could see their worried faces. She hated that. She hated looking unprepared. She hated feeling out of control. She called for help, and another boat came to pull hers back. It took time. The guests tried to act polite, but Linda noticed how they looked at their phones and whispered to each other. By the time the boat returned to the dock, Linda felt her pride burning inside her chest. That night, she promised herself something. By morning, the boat would be fixed, and it would be fixed perfectly. So she had made calls. Many calls. She contacted one engineering company, then another, then another. She did not care about price. She cared about speed. She wanted the best people, the smartest people, the most confident people. She wanted results. And she got them. By early morning, engineers arrived from different places. Some wore clean uniforms. Some wore formal shirts. Some carried expensive tool cases and tablets. A few even came with small machines for testing. They stepped onto the dock in groups, looking at the boat like it was a challenge they were excited to defeat. Linda watched them with a serious expression, but inside she felt relief. 30 engineers. That number felt strong. That number felt safe. 30 engineers meant she would not lose. At first, the engineers worked quickly. They checked the main engine room. They opened panels. They tested wires. They looked at computer screens. They ran fuel checks, pressure checks, and sensor checks. They spoke in complicated terms and used words that sounded important. Linda stood on the deck, arms crossed, listening. She did not understand most of what they said, but she liked the sound of confident talk. She liked seeing people work under pressure, especially when the pressure came from her. After 1 hour, the boat still did not start. The engineers tried again. They discussed. They changed small parts. They reset systems. They checked the batteries. They cleaned connections. Still nothing. Linda's eyes narrowed. "Why is it not working yet?" she asked. One engineer, a tall man with glasses, smiled nervously. "It might be a deeper issue. We need a little more time." Linda did not like that answer. She walked closer, her voice sharper. I do not pay for time. I pay for solutions. The engineer nodded quickly. Yes, we will solve it. The second hour passed. The harbor kept moving. Fishermen unloaded boxes of fish. Workers moved ropes and barrels. Tourists took photos near the water. But around Linda's boat, the atmosphere felt tense. More engineers came out of the engine room with worried faces. They began to argue softly. One said the problem was electrical. Another said it was fuel-related. Another believed it was a sensor issue. They showed each other readings, but the readings did not match their expectations. Linda watched them like a judge watching a weak performance. Her assistant whispered, "Do you want me to call another team?" Linda's jaw tightened. "I already called the best," she replied. "They will fix it." The third hour arrived. The engineers had now checked almost everything they could think of. They even replaced a part that was expensive, just to test if it was the cause. But the engine stayed silent. Linda's embarrassment returned. She imagined her guests from last night talking about her. She imagined people laughing quietly behind her back. Linda hated that thought more than the broken engine itself. Finally, she could not hold her anger anymore. She stepped forward, her voice loud enough for the dock workers to hear. "If you are all so smart, then why can none of you fix my boat?" she shouted. Everyone froze. The engineers stopped moving. A few looked down. Some looked at each other, unsure what to say. The tall man with glasses opened his mouth, but no words came out. Linda's voice became even colder. 30 engineers, she said, pointing around. 30. And not one of you can make a boat engine start. The dock felt quiet for a moment, except for the gentle waves. One engineer tried to speak. Sometimes machines have unusual problems. We need to. Enough, Linda cut him off. I do not want excuses. Her assistant looked uncomfortable. The security guard remained still, like a statue. The engineers slowly began packing their tools. It was clear they felt defeated. Some looked angry, not at Linda, but at the boat. They had expected an easy win, but the boat had refused to cooperate. As they moved away, a few dock workers whispered to each other. Linda noticed them and felt her anger rise again. She hated when people watched her fail. At the far end of the dock, near a stack of old ropes and a small storage shed, a man stood quietly. His name was Ravi. Ravi was not an engineer. He was known around the harbor as a repair worker. Sometimes he fixed fishing nets. Sometimes he repaired small motors. Sometimes he helped old boat owners with simple problems. He did not wear a uniform. He wore a faded shirt, worn pants, and shoes that had seen many days of hard work. But his hands were steady. Next to him stood a young girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old. Her name was Meena. She was Ravi's daughter. Her hair was tied back neatly, and she held a small lunch bag in her hands. She often came with her father when he worked, especially on days when Ravi could not afford to leave her at home. Meena watched the scene with wide eyes. She had seen rich people before, but not like Linda. Linda looked like someone who expected the world to bow. Ravi remained quiet, but he was listening. While the engineers were arguing and rushing, Ravi had been paying attention to the small details. He had heard a faint clicking sound from the engine area earlier, even when the engine did not start. He had noticed how the boat shook slightly when the start button was pressed, as if something tried to work but could not. Ravi also noticed something else. The engineers were focused on big systems. They were testing screens and sensors, searching for a big answer. But Ravi believed many problems began from small things. Meena tugged gently at his sleeve. "Baba," she whispered, "can you fix it?" Ravi did not answer immediately. He did not want to be careless. This was not a normal boat. This was a boat with power and pride attached to it. Still, he could not ignore what he felt in his mind. Ravi had spent many years fixing machines without fancy tools. He had learned to listen, to observe, and to stay patient. He had learned that machines spoke in their own way. If someone listened properly, the machine would reveal the truth. Linda turned to leave the boat, frustrated. That was when her eyes landed on Ravi. At first, she did not recognize him. To her, dock workers all looked the same. But she noticed he was staring at her boat, not at her. That bothered her. She walked closer, her heels tapping sharply. "What are you staring at?" she asked. Ravi looked up respectfully. "The boat," he said. Linda let out a small laugh, not a kind one. "And why are you staring at it?" Ravi spoke calmly. "I heard the engine earlier. I think I understand what might be wrong." Linda's smile became wider, but not because she was happy. It was a smile full of doubt. "You think," she repeated. "Do you even know who has been working on this boat?" Ravi nodded slightly. "I saw them." Linda lifted her chin. 30 engineers failed, she said. 30. Some of them have degrees, certificates, big jobs, big salaries. And you think you can solve it? A few engineers who were still nearby looked back, curious. Some dock workers paused to watch. Mina's heart beat faster. She felt nervous for her father, but she also believed in him. She had seen Ravi fix things others could not. She had seen him repair an old generator with simple tools. She had seen him help neighbors when their fans stopped working in summer. Ravi did not brag. He just worked. Ravi stayed polite. "If you allow me," he said, "I can take a look." Linda's eyes narrowed. She was tired, angry, embarrassed. Her pride was already hurt, and she did not want more damage. But she also wanted the boat fixed more than anything. She waved her hand like she was dismissing him. "Fine," she said. "Take a look. But do not waste my time. If you fail, do not expect kindness from me." Ravi nodded once. Understood. He placed his small bag down carefully. He told Mina to stand by the dock and stay safe. Mina nodded and held her lunch bag tighter. Ravi stepped onto the boat. The engineers watched him. Some looked amused. Some looked curious. Linda stood with crossed arms, waiting to see him fail. Ravi walked slowly toward the engine area. He did not touch anything yet. He did not open random panels. He did not pretend to know everything. He simply listened. The boat was quiet, but Ravi's eyes were sharp. His mind moved like a calm river, searching for the real cause hidden under the noise and pride. And deep inside, he felt something. This was not a big problem. It was a small one. But small problems can embarrass the biggest people. Ravi took a deep breath and reached toward the engine panel, ready to begin. The engine room felt warm and quiet as Ravi stepped inside. The smell of oil, metal, and fuel mixed together in the small space. Light came from a single lamp above, casting soft shadows on pipes and wires. The engine stood in the center like a silent animal, strong but resting. Ravi did not rush. Outside, Linda tapped her foot on the deck. Her arms stayed crossed. She looked confident, but inside she felt unsure. Part of her hoped Ravi would fail quickly so she could prove herself right. Another part of her quietly wished he would succeed so the problem would finally disappear. The engineers stood a little distance away. Some whispered to each other. "What is he doing?" one asked. "He is not even using tools," another said. "He looks too calm," a third replied. Inside the engine room, Ravi placed his hand gently on the metal surface. It felt slightly warm. That told him something important. He leaned closer and listened carefully. The engine was silent, but not fully dead. There was a faint tension in the air, like something was ready to move but could not. Ravi closed his eyes for a moment. He remembered his early years. He had grown up in a small village where machines were rare and expensive. When something broke, there was no money to replace it. People fixed things because they had no other choice. Ravi learned from watching older men repair water pumps, farming tools, and small motors. They did not have big education or fancy tools. They had patience. They taught him one thing clearly. A machine always gives signs before it fails. Ravi opened his eyes and began checking slowly. He did not look at everything at once. He focused on one section at a time. He traced a fuel line with his fingers. He checked a connection near the side. Everything looked fine. Then he noticed something small. A cable near the back was slightly out of position. Not broken. Not burned. Just not sitting the way it should. It was the kind of thing easy to miss if someone was rushing or looking only at screens. Ravi smiled faintly. He took a small cloth from his pocket and wiped the area clean. The cable had oil dust around it, hiding the problem. He gently adjusted it and pressed it into place. Then he tightened a small connector by hand. That was all. Ravi stepped back and looked at the engine again. Everything felt balanced now. The tension he had sensed before was gone. He walked out of the engine room and looked toward Linda. "You can try starting it now," he said calmly. Linda blinked. "That is it?" Ravi nodded. "Yes." Linda laughed shortly. "You did not even use a tool." "I did not need one," Ravi replied. Linda waved to her assistant. "Start it," she said, her voice carrying doubt and challenge at the same time. The assistant pressed the start button. For a second, nothing happened. Linda's lips tightened, ready to speak. Then the engine started. Not slowly. Not weakly. It came alive with a smooth, steady sound. The whole boat vibrated gently, the way it was meant to. The sound was clean and strong. People gasped. Some engineers stepped closer in disbelief. One of them said softly, "That is not possible." Mina clapped her hands without thinking. She quickly stopped and looked around, but her eyes shone with pride. Linda froze where she stood. The engine continued running perfectly. She walked closer to the engine room door, staring inside as if the engine might stop again. But it did not. She turned to Ravi. "What did you do?" Ravi answered simply, "I fixed a loose connection." The engineers looked at each other. One of them frowned. "We checked all the connections." Ravi nodded respectfully. "You checked them quickly. I listened first." Silence spread across the dock. Linda felt heat rise to her face. Not anger this time, but something else. Shock. Confusion. Embarrassment. 30 engineers. Hours of work. Expensive tools. And this man had solved it in minutes. She cleared her throat. "You are saying all this trouble was caused by one small thing?" Ravi nodded again. "Yes." One engineer stepped forward. "Why did the system not show an error?" Ravi looked at him. "Some problems do not appear on screens. They appear in sound and behavior." The engineer slowly stepped back, thinking. Linda felt everyone watching her now. The dock workers. The engineers. Even her own assistant. For the first time in a long time, Linda did not know what to say immediately. She looked at Ravi again, really looked at him. His clothes were simple. His hands were rough. But his eyes were calm and clear. "How did you know?" she asked, quieter than before. Ravi answered honestly. "I have seen similar problems many times. Machines often fail because of small neglect. Big knowledge is important, but attention is more important." Linda swallowed. Her pride wanted to fight back. But her mind knew the truth. The boat was fixed. The problem was solved. She took a deep breath. "How much do I owe you?" she asked. Ravi did not answer right away. He looked toward Mina, standing patiently on the dock. "I only ask for enough to cover food and school needs for my daughter this week," he said. The dock went silent again. Linda stared at him. She had expected a number. A large one, maybe spoken with confidence. Instead, she heard something simple. She felt something uncomfortable inside her chest. Guilt. She pulled out her phone and signaled her assistant. "Pay him," she said. "Pay him well." The assistant nodded quickly. Ravi shook his head slightly. "Only what I asked for is fine." Linda looked at him sharply. "Do not refuse," she said, then paused. Her voice softened. "You earned it." Ravi nodded politely and accepted. The engineers began packing their remaining tools. Some looked embarrassed. Some looked thoughtful. One of them approached Ravi. "You taught us something today," the engineer said quietly. Ravi smiled gently. "Learning never ends." Linda watched this exchange closely. Something inside her shifted. She was used to people apologizing to her, thanking her, praising her. She was not used to learning from someone she had dismissed. She stepped closer to Ravi. "I spoke harshly earlier," she said. The words felt heavy in her mouth. "I judged you without knowing your skill." Ravi bowed his head slightly. "It happens," he replied. Linda looked at Meena. "Is she your daughter?" "Yes," Ravi said. "Her name is Meena." Meena smiled shyly. Linda nodded slowly. "She should be proud." Meena looked up at her father, her smile growing. The engine continued to run smoothly in the background, steady and reliable. Linda turned and looked at her boat, then at the harbor around her. She noticed the workers, the old fishing boats, the simple tools. Things she had ignored before now felt clearer. She had believed money solved everything. That belief cracked. As Linda prepared to leave, she paused one last time. "If I need help again," she said, "can I contact you?" Ravi nodded. "If I am available." Linda stepped onto her boat, her posture less sharp than before. The assistants followed quietly. As the boat pulled away from the dock, the water moved gently around it, shining under the sun. Meena walked up to her father and held his hand. "You did great," she said. Ravi smiled. "You did too. You stayed patient." The dock slowly returned to its normal rhythm. People went back to work. The engineers left, carrying more thoughts than tools. But the lesson stayed. That day, many people learned that intelligence does not always arrive in expensive clothes, loud voices, or big teams. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, listens carefully, and fixes what others overlook. The harbor slowly returned to its normal life after the boat left. The sound of the engine faded into the distance, mixing with the calls of seagulls and the splash of water against the dock. People went back to their work, but their minds were not the same as before. They kept thinking about what they had just seen. Ravi picked up his small bag and walked toward Meena. She looked up at him with bright eyes. "Baba," she said softly, "everyone was watching you." Ravi smiled gently. "That is fine. What matters is that the work was done honestly." They sat on a wooden bench near the dock. Ravi opened Meena's lunch bag and gave her some food. She ate happily, swinging her legs back and forth. Nearby, 2 dock workers whispered to each other. "Did you see that?" one said. 30 engineers could not fix it. "And he did it with his hands and ears," the other replied. News spreads fast in a small place. By afternoon, many people in the harbor knew the story. Some came to Ravi to thank him for helping the town feel proud. Some came to ask him questions about their own small machine problems. Ravi did not act special. He answered politely and promised help when he could. Later that day, far away from the harbor, Linda sat inside her boat as it moved smoothly across the water. The engine sounded perfect. But her mind was not calm. She kept replaying the morning in her head. Her sharp words. Her crossed arms. Her laughter filled with doubt. She remembered how Ravi stood quietly, not trying to impress anyone. She remembered how he asked for permission instead of demanding attention. She remembered how small the fix was. Linda leaned back in her seat and stared at the water. For years, she had believed intelligence was proven by degrees, titles, and money. She believed power spoke loudly and confidence came from control. She had built her life around these ideas, and they had worked for her business. But today showed her something new. Skill could be quiet. Wisdom could be simple. Respect could be earned without fear. The boat reached another dock near the city. Linda stepped off and walked slowly to her car. Her assistant followed, unsure what to say. As they drove away, Linda finally spoke. "Find that man," she said. The assistant looked surprised. "Which man?" "The one who fixed the boat," Linda replied. "Ravi." The assistant nodded. "Yes, Should I offer him a job?" Linda thought for a moment. "No," she said. "Not yet." She looked out the window as buildings passed by. "First," she continued, "I want to understand him." The next morning, Linda returned to the harbor alone. No assistants. No security guard. Just her. People noticed immediately. Some whispered. Some stared. Linda ignored them and walked toward the end of the dock where Ravi usually worked. Ravi was fixing a small fishing motor. Meena sat nearby, reading from a book. Linda stopped a few steps away and waited. Ravi finished tightening a bolt and stood up. When he saw Linda, he looked surprised but stayed calm. "Good morning," he said. Linda nodded. "Good morning." There was an awkward silence. "I came to thank you properly," Linda said. "Yesterday, I was rude." Ravi shook his head. "You were upset. That happens." Linda sighed. "That is not an excuse," she replied. "I forgot something important." Ravi waited. "I forgot that respect should come before judgment," Linda said. Meena looked up from her book, curious. Linda smiled slightly at her. "You have a good father." Meena smiled back. Linda turned to Ravi again. "I want to offer you something," she said. Ravi listened carefully. "I own several boats and properties," Linda continued. "They need regular care. I want someone who understands machines and people. I want someone who listens." She paused. "I want you to be my main repair advisor." Ravi was silent for a moment. People nearby slowed their work to listen. Ravi finally spoke. "That is a generous offer," he said. "But I cannot promise full time." Linda nodded. "I understand. You can choose when to work. I will respect your time." Ravi thought about Meena. About his work. About his freedom. "I will help when I can," he said. "But I will not leave the harbor." Linda smiled. "That is fair." She handed him a card with her contact details. As Linda walked away, people watched her with new eyes. She did not look powerful anymore. She looked thoughtful. Weeks passed. Ravi continued his simple work. But now, when something serious broke on one of Linda's boats, he was called first. He fixed problems carefully, always explaining what he did and why. Linda listened. She asked questions. She learned. The engineers who once ignored Ravi now respected him. Some even asked him for advice. Ravi shared knowledge freely, never acting superior. Meena noticed changes too. Her school fees were paid on time. Their home felt less heavy with worry. Ravi smiled more often. But he stayed the same. One evening, Meena asked, "Baba, why did that rich woman change?" Ravi smiled gently. "Because sometimes, people learn when life surprises them." Linda changed as well. She spoke differently to workers. She listened more. She judged less. People noticed and talked about it. The story of the broken boat became a lesson told again and again. Not about money. Not about power. But about humility. Years later, Meena grew older. She remembered the day her father fixed the boat that no one else could. She remembered the silence before the engine started. She remembered the look on Linda's face. That memory shaped her. She learned that confidence does not need noise. Skill does not need praise. Respect does not need fear. And Ravi continued to work quietly at the harbor, fixing small things that mattered more than anyone realized. The harbor stayed the same. But the people did not.